And welcome to another episode of Experts Speak. I'm Michael DeLon, and today I am talking with Jeff Thomas. Jeff, thanks for being with me today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, you're welcome. It's going to be really fun. Jeff is the author of the book Trading Up, and so Jeff is he's the founder of let me get it, Archetype Wealth Partners. Did I say that right?
Yes, sir.
Archetype. That's awesome. So Jeff and I connected a few weeks ago. He mailed me a copy of his book, which is phenomenal. He signed it. He's doing all the right things, but that's not what we're talking about today. We want to talk about trading up, moving from success to significance. So Jeff is a follower of Christ. He's a business owner, and we want to talk today about how do you manage those two worlds and realize that they really aren't two worlds, they're one, because business is ministry. But Jeff, tell us a little bit about you. How did you get to this spot of authoring a book? Give us a snapshot of who you are.
Well, thank you for having me. And just a little background. Growing up, I grew up mostly in St. Louis, around the Midwest, but my dad was a business guy who was an engineer, MBA, and started kind of on the fast track in business, and in his late 20s, he was attending church with my mother, and the senior pastor asked him, "Have you ever thought about going into the ministry?" You know, and my joke is that the guy probably asked every 20-something person in the church. He finally got somebody to say, "Yes, actually, I have thought about that." And long story short, he went back to seminary and would work at the engineering company in the summertime and switched careers. And so what that planted in my brain, it was a wonderful example. My dad is really my hero. But what that planted in my brain was that maybe to be in full-time ministry, you have to switch to work for a nonprofit, a church, some kind of ministry or nonprofit. And so I kind of always had that in the back of my brain. And so I didn't really feel called into, working for a nonprofit or being a pastor. I hate to call it full-time ministry because I've learned since then that we're really all in ministry. We can all minister to people, even in the for-profit world of business. And so I spent a lot of years just kind of chasing the American dream of success, the way the world defines that, with money and possessions and all that, and just sort of led me to an empty place. And I started going, well, I've got something wrong because I'm not feeling fulfilled. And I kind of went back to that faith of my youth and realized that engaging and giving through your business while you're working, not just as make a bunch of money and give it away, but the way you treat people, the way you run your business, the way you treat your customers, all of those things are ministry in themselves. So we're all in ministry, not just the people who get a paycheck from a nonprofit.
That's awesome. That's a great perspective, because so many times when we think about being givers or being in ministry in business, we're thinking about giving money. But exactly. My business is a ministry to the people that I work with, the people I employ, my clients. All of that is wrapped up in ministry, right?
Exactly.
Let's talk about so real quick, trading up. So you've been a financial planner for a while. You've had wild success financially, but it left you empty, right?
Yes.
Talk just a snippet about that, and then what was the turning point there for you? How'd you?
Yeah. So I was a singles tennis player all growing up, and that's good. There's sports is great for all kinds of reasons, resilience and hard work and all these kind of things that are wonderful. So I'm a big fan of playing sports, but that individual sport, I always preferred playing singles, not doubles. And of course, in that world, you have that bracket, right? In singles, and there's only one winner. So when I went to work I was in public accounting for a couple of years, and then got into the wealth management business at Payne Weber, that's now part of UBS. And then we spent 17 years at Morgan Stanley, and then we started Archetype about 4 years ago. But during that time at those big firms, there's literally a scorecard button on the computer at Morgan Stanley, and it was assets and revenue, okay, and where you ranked globally in the firm. So for me, it was just a bracket. I was like, I know this game, okay? You're trying to get to number one, right? And so I just sort of had my head down and working hard and developing client relationships, investing the money, hire another person, build the team. And I sort of woke up 10 years into that, going, okay, well, I've made a bunch of money. I thought that was sort of the goal, the American dream. And, we're going to church on Sunday, we're supporting things, but I really didn't feel like I was in ministry. I was just kind of separating my sort of faith life on Sunday, and then just, tent making or whatever is kind of how I thought of it during the week. And that led to this sort of empty place. I'm like, the money isn't really doing it for me. And I didn't know what I was missing, and so I started doing this soul searching. I actually read a book by Lee Strobel called The Case for Christ. I was like, my dad was a pastor, but I felt like I had like a second grade knowledge of the Bible, I think there's probably answers in this book called the Bible, but do I even believe that thing's true? I don't know. I was kind of trading still in my early 30s on my parents' faith, I think, that's why I accepted Christ, but I just really wasn't living it in an integrated way in my professional life. And so I read that book. Lee Strobel was a lot of people watching this may or may not know him. He's kind of famous in Christian circles, but he was a hardcore atheist that, was an investigative reporter for the Chicago Tribune. And then he wanted to disprove Christianity so his wife would stop dragging him to church. And in fact, he interviewed everybody and realized it was true and became a Christian. So, he was so skeptical. I wasn't nearly as skeptical as he was. So I got about 2/3 of the way through that. I go, Uncle, okay, I'm going to read the Bible. There's obviously answers. So I was doing that, and God just revealed to me what my problem was. I couldn't put my finger on it in my early 30s. I'm in my early 50s now. I couldn't put my finger on what the gap was in my sort of joy, if you will, and what God revealed to me is I was putting a little g God of money above the big G God that fulfills everything we want to do. And that was not a pretty picture. That mirror of the Bible really was not pretty. And he just revealed that to me. And so I spent years just trying to reverse that and putting him first and letting the money follow the things he wanted me to give it to. And it really just created joy. So it really was a place of kind of emptiness, chasing that. I didn't even know that's really what I was doing. I just kind of had the wrong worldview. And then when we got it right, my relationship with my wife became better. We became more generous as a couple. Just everything improved. And I found I wanted to share that with clients. So we started talking a lot more about generosity, which brought all kinds of wonderful people as clients. And it ultimately led to us, starting our own firm.
Yeah, and that's cool. One of the things that you talk about there, I mean, you dropped it there, is money's not going to make you happy, right? Money's a tool. That's all it is. I was with a guy a couple of weeks ago, multimillionaire, business owner, solid Christian, and he said, money is an amplifier. If you're a bad person and doing bad things, it will amplify that. If you're a good person, you want to do good things, it will amplify that. He's like, that's all it is. And I really like how he put that. I used to be a mechanic years and years ago, car mechanic. And I tell people, I can pick up a wrench or a screwdriver. They're just tools. That's all money is. It's a tool that God allows us to use. But too many times we want to own it. And you talk in your book, it's about the difference between trading ownership for stewardship, right? Unpack that a little bit.
Okay. So I have a prop for this one. All right. Okay. So not everybody on Zoom can pull off the get up and walk around. I promise I won't go too far. But this, for people maybe listening, they can't see it, but for people that are watching the video, this is a young guy that I discipled, made this for me, and it's a turtle on a fence post. And I have this on my shelf to remind me that that turtle didn't get on that fence post by himself. Okay, that turtle can't climb that post. Okay, and so I kind of thought of myself with my sort of worldly successes. I was working hard and building a team and treating people right, and I was doing it. My intellect, my hard work, but I didn't pick my parents, who happen to be wonderful. They happen to value education and help me pay for college. We're living in America right now in the wealthiest country that's ever been put on the earth. Mm-hmm. I was a turtle on a fence post and still am. And so most of those things are really just gifts from God. I mean, he's the one who made the earth and everything in it and gave us the parents and put us exactly and gave us the tools, our health, in this time of COVID and all of that. Just to be blessed with health is a big deal, to be able even to just get up and go to work, and or to have a job, or to be put in a business, with a growing stock market. I don't have much to do with that. Okay, that helps our revenue when the stock market goes up. So our job is just to appreciate, have gratitude for the gifts we've been given, and then use them, like the parable of the talents, right? One person was given 5, 1, 2, and 1, 1, and the person with 5 got to 10, good job. 2 got to 4, great job. 1 just buried it, you're in trouble. Took the one person that didn't use it and gave it to one of the other folks. So it's just a stewardship issue. Once we realize that we're really not all that, and that we've been given all these gifts, our job is to simply utilize them to be a blessing to others. So love God, love others. It's not more complicated than that, and kind of get out of the way. And then God wants to use you. Of course, I'm in Houston, where we talk a lot about oil and gas. I always say he wants us to be pipelines for his blessing, not storage tanks. Okay. Wow. And so, it's just amazing. Like, the more that you can be trusted with his resources, the more he'll use you to pass those along. So you were talking about Randy Alcorn. I think one of his lines is, we're not blessed to increase our lifestyle, but to increase our generosity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And as business owners, it's just too easy to continue increasing our lifestyle as profits go up. And Randy Alcorn talked about the disease of affluenza in America, right? We are too affluent.
Exactly. And the 3 questions we always ask people, because our company really deals with business owners who want to talk about generosity. So this is right down our alley. I appreciate your asking these questions, because it's right down. And we always ask them 3 questions, and they seem really simple, Michael, on the surface. But I would maybe challenge your listeners to think about these 3 questions maybe for themselves. It's like, how much is enough for you, right? Most people just say, well, more, or what do the Joneses have, right? So establishing your own finish line, thinking hard about that with your spouse if you're married. And the second one is, how much is enough for the kids? So one of the top questions we get from our clients is, how do I not ruin the kids? I got this company, we might be selling it, whatever. Now we have more liquid cash than we ever did. We could sort of play poor when we just lived on our income from the business, but now we've sold it and we got this pile. What are we supposed to do with it? Are you just supposed to divide by the number of kids? That doesn't feel right to most people, but our culture doesn't do a good job of asking that question. And then what do you do with the rest? So once you've got your finish line, how much you think is appropriate for the kids? And these are all questions as a steward. God owns it all. We're just stewards. Ask the owner. He will give you the answer to those questions. And then what do you do with the rest? And one of the things, I think Randy Alcorn might talk about this too. He says, I don't think we get credit for giving things when we're dead. Yeah. I like that one. It's not sacrificial. We're already gone. So if you can identify the excess you have, it's so much more fun, frankly. Give it away while you're alive. And figure out, what breaks your heart, and involve your family in the giving. And I'm telling you, that'll make your family so much stronger than any multiple homes and airplanes.
Well, it is. And I'm going to jump in here, brother. So a lot of us have read the book Profit First.
Yeah.
All right. And that's a great concept. It works. You take a little bit of profit off the top and you put it in a separate account. Great. We do that. But a year or so ago, because I believe our business is God's business and we want to give generously, I created another account and I call it my Giving First account. So right off the top, I take another percentage and put it in a giving fund, and we give every month out of that. As the business grows, we have more money to give as we are growing the business, right? And I want to challenge business owners to think that way. It's not just about how much profit can I get. It's how much can I give away, at a different way. You can do it the same way as Profit First. So just wanted to throw that in there as a way to help people think about, wow, we are stewards. At the end of the day, I love that Matthew 25, the parable of the talents. I tell people all the time, I'm a 2-talent guy, right? I'm going to try my best to double it. But at the end of the day, when they came back, who got the increase? The stewards didn't get that. The master got the increase, and they got affirmed and got more responsibility. I don't know that they got pay raises. Maybe they did, but God got the increase, right? And so as stewards, that's what we need to do, is work diligently with what God's given us. And when he provides the increase, I love, this is enough for me. I set my income. Everything else goes to God or whatever. It's a mindset, right? And so that's, there we go. He just dropped out just for a minute. There you are. Zoom is a wonderful thing when it works in the internet.
But you know what? Editing is a beautiful thing.
It is. We just keep going. It's no big deal. So I don't know what you heard or didn't hear, but I was telling about.
So we kind of froze on the Matthew verse, I think.
The Matthew, yeah. So we're all talents. I'm a 2-talent guy, and the increase that those guys had, though, they didn't get to keep the increase. The increase went back to the master, right? And so the same aspect with stewardship. I need to steward. If my business grows, praise God, I need to have my income limit, like you talked about. How much is enough for me? And then if God blesses above that, well, maybe he has a purpose for that now, not when I'm dead. I love that. Not that there's anything wrong with giving people, have that set up so when you die, your family has an inheritance. That's great, but they don't need $14 million. I don't think.
I'll tell you an interesting story, just to kind of give the radical example, and people can Google this and find the video, or maybe you can put in the show notes or whatever. But there's a guy named Alan Barnhart who runs Barnhart Crane out of Memphis, and they've now got offices everywhere. But he's, I think, in his early 60s, and he's a friend. We're kind of working on a book together about this topic of giving away your company and being generous within your company. And he's my example of kind of the most generous example, just to kind of get people's maybe mind brewing a little. 30 years ago, his parents had 2 cranes, right? And they kind of ran the business out of their house, and they would rent out these cranes. And they said, we're going to retire to him and his brother is about the same age. Alan's just getting out of college. And he says, and Alan was getting married right out of college, and his wife wanted to become a missionary. And he wanted to take over these couple of cranes with his brother and grow it. So he and his wife made a deal where they said, we'll take over the crane business, but we're going to pay ourselves as missionaries. And if God blesses the business and we make anything else, we'll give away the money. So the first year in business, they made $50,000 extra and they gave it away. Well, now they're giving away, he did the same thing. He's just increased his salary a little bit for 30 years. They're now giving away a couple of $1 million a month, Michael.
That's great.
Basically, a foundation owns the entire business, and he pays everybody generously. A lot of people make more than he does because he's just choosing what that finish line looks like for himself. But he's funding all the things. And I'm telling you, this guy's personal balance sheet is way smaller than about anybody else that founded or running a company that big. But I guarantee you, he's 1,000 times happier than most of those guys.
That is so cool. And I know he's part of, I've heard his story because of a ministry that you're part of is called Generous Giving.
Exactly.
And people need to go to their website. I think it's probably generousgiving.org, probably.
That's exactly right.
It's just an organization. And I love what they said there. They said, we will never tell you what to do with your money. It's spurring on conversations around generosity. And I love watching their videos. It's just so powerful around business owners like the Barnharts, who just have figured it out for them and what God wants them to do it.
And it's not formulaic. Just because that's radical and you say, well, that doesn't fit for me or whatever. Great. I like your example. A little bit off the top. Let's start that way. Our company, we gave 10% to the foundation. Over our lifetimes, we plan to do all of it, but we're going to do it incrementally over the years as God guides us. We just ask him what to do. And so just start somewhere.
That's right.
And ask the owner what to do, and he'll do it. And I'm telling you, we know that's one of the promises God makes, is if you do it that way, he's going to deliver joy.
He will. So ask the owner. That's great. Ask God, read his word. But also in your book, multiple times, you talk about a decision came up or something happened, and you're not so sure what to do. So you go ask your wife. And she typically had a good answer for you because God, many times, at least in my life, speaks through my wife, right? It's like, oh, okay, confirms things. So it's not, it is asking God, but it's having counsel with your wife.
There's I think I referenced it in my book, but there's one of my mentors is a guy named Terry Looper who runs a big oil service company here in Houston, just a wonderful, godly man. And he's been on this journey as well. He's just a decade or two ahead of me. And he wrote a book called Sacred Pace that I would recommend to everybody. I think I referenced it maybe a little bit at the end of my book, but he talks about how to make decisions with God. And I really like it. It's just a simple 4 or 5 step process where you do ask God, constantly praying, right? Usually we don't get the answers, to your point, in the time frame that maybe we would like it. One of my favorite ideas that he has is getting neutral. So if we can remove as many, like we're going to be biased, but if we can remove as many of our biases as possible about God, I just want whatever you want. That's really hard. But to get neutral, but then look at the circumstances, collect the facts, and part of those, looking at the circumstances and collecting the facts, are talking to other godly people, including our spouses.
Yes.
Because God gave us those spouses for a reason, you know? So they've got a lot of, especially for us guys, most of us are married to women with probably better instincts. I know my wife's got better instincts. She can read situations and people and maybe what we should engage in or not engage in. And so she's always been ahead of me. And she's not quite the Bible study nerd I am, but I got to catch up to her. She's got just in touch with the Spirit anyway. So
yeah, it's good. So, you use a phrase in your book that I want you to unpack it a little bit, is being all in for God. What do you mean by that?
You know, it's funny. You were talking about being a mechanic and the tools. And the first picture I get when you were talking about that is I think of alignment. You know, when your car isn't exactly in alignment, if it's just a little bit off, the tires go, you're wearing out parts. It's just a disaster, right? You got to be in alignment to go fast and smooth and keep everything operating. And so when I think about all in, to me, that's the alignment. It's just one of my favorite words. God's just got me thinking a lot about alignment lately. And so all in, to me, that's the integrated life of, I used to live not an integrated life. Go to church on Sunday, do the tent making, give a little bit of a tip to God on the weekends, but that is not all in. All in is just complete surrender. Okay, you own all the money. I had a lot of things like the money thing that I wanted to grip on, and I thought those would bring me satisfaction. I'll put you down the list. But once you turn everything over, the business, the money, that seems scary because you think he might tell you to go to Africa or do something you want to do. He's not going to tell you anything you're not equipped for that won't be amazing.
That's right.
Doesn't mean it's easy, but it will be amazing. And I guarantee you better than whatever you came up with.
Amen.
So I'm completely addicted to the all-in lifestyle because the more I gave him, the better my life got. So all these rules and everything, a lot of people think Christianity is about a lot of rules and all that kind of stuff. It's just like for our kids, like don't touch the hot stove because we don't want you to get burned. He's trying to guide us with those guardrails into a better place. Yeah. He loves us and wants the most amazing thing for us. His picture of what your life should be like, Michael, is way better than anything you could ask or imagine. So why wouldn't we do it? Why wouldn't we just engage with him and allow that to happen? Enjoy that ride.
That's right. No, I think it's great. I don't know if it's C.S. Lewis or something. I read it first in John Piper's book about, we can't see all that. We are happy making mud pies on the beach when we don't understand what a vacation at sea is all about, right? And it's like, wow.
One of my favorite illustrations on that, and I think I tell in the book, is Michelangelo when he carves David, right? It's like he goes into the quarry, where they sell these big blocks of marble and that kind of thing, and he gets this giant block of white marble, and apparently a couple of sculptors had already bought this thing and returned it. Just too big, it just overwhelmed them. And anyway, Michelangelo gets this thing, carves David. If you've ever seen a picture or in real life in Italy, the thing's amazing, 25 feet high. It's big, right? It's like perfect. It's amazing that this guy carved this thing out of one giant piece of marble. And when they interviewed him, even at the time, everybody was like, even back then, they're like, holy smokes, how did you do that? That thing's amazing. And he goes, I saw David in there and I let him out.
That's right.
I love that analogy of like, what a way that God looks at us, like not for the foibles that we have and that we're so aware of our own shortcomings and all of those things, but he sees the God-given potential he's put in us, and how can we look at each other that way? So even in business, how can we interact with our customers, our suppliers, our employees, all of that thing, not for the flawed people they are, but what they could be, and how do we treat them in that way? What a much more fun way to live than an unintegrated, part-time.
That's right. It talks about something you mentioned in your book is you better be living what you're preaching, which is really important because integrity is huge. But I want to talk about this concept because a lot of business owners, a lot of people focus on retirement, right? I'm planning for retirement. I'm saving for retirement. But in your book, you really threw a curveball on page 66. You talk about retire versus tire, which is to add more tread, I was like, what? So unpack that because I really like that concept.
Thanks for bringing that up. So this is really interesting. In fact, there's something that I've learned since I wrote the book recently that I didn't know. Somebody said, all the words that you really need to know probably were in Hebrew. Okay, if that was like the original language, God got you. And in Hebrew, apparently, there's no word for retirement.
Okay.
And so I think this concept of retirement. I'll blame my industry of the wealth management business, where it probably, and I'll even blame the subcategory of insurance people, that want to sell annuities or whatever. So, frankly, it's only been in the last, 50 years or so that people really live into their 80s anyway. When they set up Social Security in the 30s, if you lived past 62, okay, we'll give you something, but life expectancy was 62. Right. So it didn't really, there really wasn't this thing called retirement. So only now that life is extending, we're sort of making this thing up. And so I think our business has kind of made up this idea that you would sit on your rear end for 20 years. And I love golf as much as the next person, but not as, I'm not going to do it as a profession, right? So I think this idea of retirement, we see a lot of people who retire don't really have a meaningful game plan. And, they have health problems. I think we're made, just like an engine is made to run, not to sit idly. And so I think there is no example. Think of Moses, getting the job to lead the people out of the promised land at age 80. I mean, there is no model of not being productive in the Bible. So I think that this is back to that ownership, stewardship thing, just to be stewards of what God's given us. Even it can shift, right? You don't have to do the same work. Maybe you mentor people, this sort of thing. So the work can shift in different seasons, but maybe put new tread, like we said on that. So even if your company or whatever, you sell the company, you retire someplace, even if it's mandatory that you not work in that place anymore, there's volunteer things you can do. Just continue to use those gifts God's given us. I think our society sells a little too much of the leisure. And I don't think that's really, there's nothing wrong with some of that, some Sabbath rest and that kind of thing, but not 7 days a week.
Right.
To absorb. I think that's not a formula for fulfilling life.
It's interesting. The concept just hit me, or the idea is that when you retire in our culture, right? Yeah. God does not remove from you your talents and gifts and abilities.
Yeah.
You need
Turn
to
them
keep
all in.
That's right.
Give
yeah.
Watch. Now give me all your talent.
That's right. Doesn't work that way. And that's good because there are other ways to use it. Mentor down, be like Timothy and build into future generations. Wow. What would the world be like, Jeff, if guys like you and me and others would build down into the 20 and 30-year-olds now to say, here's a mindset you need to have. How could the world be different in a few years, right?
I mean, even today, we had we host this little thing called a Kingdom Advisor Study Group in our office once a month, basically a Bible study for other wealth managers. And we had a young guy on there that just graduated from college, went to work for a big wealth management firm, and he's trying to integrate, right, this all-in. He's trying to be an all-in guy, not just Sunday and then, Monday through Friday doing the tent making, but he's trying to live an integrated life right out of college. And I'm like, oh, you'll be 15 years ahead of me, man. Yeah. That's awesome. So you're exactly right. Let's let the next generation stand on our shoulders, do it
Why
better.
why don't you make him your turtle? You lift him up, okay? You lift him up and put him on a post over the next decade so that he can do some great things for God.
Exactly.
So, well, brother, we could be here all day. You and I are kindred spirits. I want to recommend people get your book, Trading Up. It's a phenomenal read. It has a lot of personal stories, but a lot of mindset shifts that just help us rethink who we are and why does God have us here? Why has God equipped us to be business owners? And what does he expect from us? And how do you live life really with tons of joy? Because that joy comes through giving and using the talents and gifts and abilities God's given us to expand his kingdom, to share Christ, to be a blessing, and just to do what he's called us to do.
Indeed.
So, brother, thank you for writing your book, Trading Up by Jeff Thomas. Go get yourself a copy on Amazon. Jeff, thank you so much, brother, for being on here. This has been fun.
Well, thank you for your light. It's been a joy to get to know you, and thanks for having me on today.
You are so welcome. We will stay in touch, brother.
All right.